You notice things others done that hurts. Not the noticing itself, but the heavy feeling of being the only one who sees what's wrong. You're the only one in the room who spots the cracks, who asks the hard questions, who won't pretend everything is fine. You've tried to tell them what you see. You've shared your ideas about how things could be better, but they look at you like you're speaking gibberish, like you're the problem. They treat your clear sight as if it were a disease. So you stand apart, watching everyone else choose to stay small when they could grow, pick chains when the door is open. The loneliness feels crushing. Some nights you wonder if you're the crazy one, if you should just go back to acting like them. But you can't. Once you've seen the truth, you can't pretend you haven't. Once you've tasted something bigger, the old life feels suffocating. You're a seer, and seers are always alone, at least at first. Long ago, Friedrich Nietzsche saw this too. He knew that real change doesn't start with a crowd. It starts with one person who sees farther than the rest. In his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." That's not just poetry, it's how human progress works. Every person who ever pushed the world forward first walked through a desert of being misunderstood. Nietzsche called this the path of the overman, someone who outgrows the need for the crowd's approval. You're not broken, you're breaking through. You're not lost, you're just ahead. You're alone, not because something is wrong with you, but because this is how growth starts. The universe asks those who will lead the way to learn how to stand alone. Tonight, I'll show you why your loneliness isn't a curse. It's a sign you're on the right path. Why being misunderstood isn't punishment, it's preparation, and how to turn that pain into the power to change everything. But first, you need to see what's really working against you. The crowd doesn't just ignore you, it tries to pull you back. Like gravity, they follow what Nietzsche called herd morality, rules that keep everyone the same, safe and small. When you start to rise, you're not just challenging their ideas, you're shaking their whole way of life. Your growth makes them feel stuck, your vision makes them feel blind, your courage makes them feel afraid. So they push back, not with force, but with guilt. Why can't you just be happy, like everyone else? You stir changing too much. All this thinking is making you sad. They treat your growth like a sickness, your awakening like a breakdown. But here's the truth. Their resistance isn't about you, it's about them. The herd survives by staying the same. When you change, you threaten the system, so the system tries to shut you down, not out of hate, but out of instinct. Nietzsche wrote extensively about what he called the prophet's burden, the weight carried by those who see what's coming before others are ready to see it. You know this weight intimately. It's the exhaustion of explaining obvious truths to people committed to not understanding them. It's the frustration of pointing towards solutions while others remain fixated on problems. It's the agony of watching preventable disasters unfold because no one wants to hear the warning. You see the patterns, the cycles, the inevitable consequences of collective choices. You see where the current path leads, and you try to share what you see. But prophecy has always been a thankless profession. The messenger gets shot, the truth-teller gets crucified, the visionary gets exiled, not because the message is wrong, but because it's inconvenient. Nietzsche himself experienced this burden acutely. His ideas about the death of God, the will to power, and the need for humanity to evolve beyond its current limitations were met with mockery, misunderstanding, and complete social isolation. He died alone, unrecognized. His genius acknowledged only decades after his death. But he understood something that sustained him through the loneliness. The prophet's burden is also the prophet's gift, because seeing the future, even when no one believes you, is still seeing the future, and those who can see the future are the only ones who can shape it. The loneliness you feel is not a sign that you're wrong, it's a sign that you're early, and being early is infinitely better than being never. If you're recognizing yourself in every word I'm saying, if you're feeling the validation of finally being understood, then you're ready for what comes next. You're ready to understand why this loneliness is not your cross to bear, but your crown to wear. Because this community is for the visionaries, the early adopters of consciousness, the ones brave enough to be alone with truth. But here's where Nietzsche's wisdom becomes revolutionary. He didn't just diagnose the problem of visionary isolation, he transformed it into a solution. In his concept of creative solitude, he revealed that loneliness is not the opposite of productivity, it's the prerequisite for it. All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking, he wrote. But he didn't just mean physical walking. He meant the mental journey taken by those brave enough to venture beyond the boundaries of conventional thinking. Alone, away from the noise of the crowd, away from the pressure to conform, away from the comfort of collective agreement. In solitude, you don't have to edit your thoughts for palatability. You don't have to dilute your vision for digestibility. You don't have to compromise your truth for acceptability. In solitude, you can think the unthinkable, dream the impossible, see the invisible. Every revolutionary idea, every paradigm shift, every leap forward in human consciousness has been conceived in the mind of someone sitting alone, thinking beyond the limits of their time. Darwin, Einstein, Tesla, Jung, all visionaries, all misunderstood, all forced to develop their world-changing ideas in isolation, because the world wasn't ready to participate in their creation. Your loneliness is not emptiness, it's space. Space for ideas too large for small minds, space for visions too expansive for narrow perspectives, space for truths too uncomfortable for comfortable people. The crowd will always tell you that isolation is unhealthy, that you need to get out more, that you're thinking too much, but they're wrong. You're not thinking too much. You're thinking differently, and different thinking requires different conditions. It requires the brave willingness to be alone with possibility. Nietzsche's greatest gift to humanity was not his criticism of the old ways. It was his vision of what we could become, the Übermensch, the overman, the human who has evolved beyond the need for external validation, beyond the comfort of herd approval, beyond the safety of collective delusion. This is not about superiority over others. This is about superiority over your former self. The Übermensch is not someone who dominates others. It's someone who can no longer be dominated by society's expectations, by the crowd's limitations, by the fear of standing alone. You are becoming this. Your loneliness is not a sign of failure. It's a symptom of metamorphosis. Like a butterfly in a chrysalis, you are dissolving your old form to create something unprecedented. And dissolution is always done alone. Transformation cannot be crowdsourced. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by committee. It becomes a butterfly by surrendering to a process that destroys everything it once was to create everything it was meant to be. Your isolation is your chrysalis. Your loneliness is your laboratory. Your solitude is your workshop for building a version of yourself that the world has never seen before. And when you emerge, when you finally spread wings that no one believed possible, they will call it sudden, they will call it lucky, they will call it overnight success. But you will know the truth. You will know the years of lonely preparation, the nights of solitary struggle, the days of isolated development. You will know that becoming extraordinary requires first accepting the loneliness of leaving ordinary behind. Nietzsche understood this. He wrote, "A man's worth is measured by the extent to which he can bear solitude, not just endure it, but bear it, carry it, transform it into strength." Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Every person who ever changed the world was initially rejected by it. Jesus, Buddha, Galileo, Copernicus, every prophet, every innovator, every visionary who ever pushed humanity forward was first pushed to the margins by humanity itself. They were ambassadors from the future, arriving in a present that wasn't ready to receive them. You are an ambassador from the future. Your loneliness is not because you don't belong, it's because you belong to a time that hasn't arrived yet, a consciousness that hasn't emerged yet, a reality that hasn't been born yet. But it's coming, and you are its herald. The ideas that seem impossible to them will be inevitable to their children. The truths they reject will be assumed by the next generation. The vision they mock will be the foundation their grandchildren build upon. You are not behind the times. You are ahead of them, and being ahead is always lonely, until it isn't, until others catch up, until the future you've been living in becomes the present. Everyone shares, until your impossible becomes their inevitable. Nietzsche called this eternal recurrence, the idea that patterns repeat, that what was once rejected will be embraced, that every no contains the seed of a future. Yes. Your job is not to convince everyone today. Your job is to remain faithful to the vision, even when you're the only one who can see it. Your job is to hold the frequency of the future until the present is ready to tune in. Your job is to be lonely now so that others won't have to be lonely later. But how do you actually do this? How do you transform the lead of loneliness into the gold of creative power? Nietzsche showed us the way through what I call alchemical solitude, the conscious transformation of isolation into innovation. 1. Stop apologizing for your vision. Stop trying to make your truth more palatable. Stop editing your insights for mass consumption. Your vision doesn't need to be understood by everyone. It needs to be pure, undiluted, uncompromised. 2. Use your alone time as laboratory time. Every hour you spend in solitude is an hour you can spend developing ideas that the crowd would never let you explore. Write, create, experiment, build. Use your isolation as insulation from the heat of criticism, the pressure of conformity, the drag of collective limitation. 3. Document your journey. Keep records of your insights. Create a trail of your thinking. Build a body of work that will serve as proof when the time comes that you saw it first. History belongs to those who write it, and visionaries who document their visions become the historians of the future. 4. Find your tribe, even if it's scattered across time and space. Connect with other visionaries, other early adopters, other ambassadors from the future. They might be dead philosophers whose books you read in solitude. They might be living pioneers you discover online. They might be future readers of your own work. Loneliness doesn't mean you're alone in the universe. It means you're alone in your time zone. 5. Trust the process. Trust that your willingness to endure isolation is preparing you for eventual vindication. Trust that your capacity to stand alone is developing your capacity to stand for something. Trust that the loneliness has a purpose. That purpose is transformation. Yours first, then everyone else's. Because here's what always happens to the visionary who endures. Vindication arrives, not immediately, not conveniently, but inevitably. The ideas that seemed crazy become obviously true. The visions that appeared impossible become clearly inevitable. The truths that were rejected become widely accepted. And suddenly, everyone claims they saw it coming. Everyone pretends they believed all along. Everyone acts as if they were on your side from the beginning. This is the visionary's final test, remaining humble when vindication arrives, not becoming bitter about past rejection, not gloating about being right, not demanding apologies from those who doubted, because vindication is not the point. Transformation is the point. Progress is the point. Evolution is the point. Your loneliness served its purpose. It protected your vision from contamination, preserved your truth from compromise, developed your strength for standing alone so that others could eventually stand with you. Nietzsche never lived to see his vindication. He died misunderstood, dismissed, alone. But his ideas survived. They spread. They influenced. They transformed. Today, concepts he was mocked for proposing are foundations of modern psychology, philosophy, and culture. His loneliness ended, but his impact endures. This is the ultimate consolation for the visionary. Your isolation is temporary, but your contribution is eternal. The loneliness ends, the legacy lasts. And every person who benefits from your courage to stand alone becomes living proof that the price you paid for their freedom was worth it. Every soul you inspire is a silent witness to your sacrifice. Every mind you awaken is a ripple in the tide you dared to disturb. So here is your choice, one you must make without illusions. You can keep trying to make others understand, explaining yourself to ears that are not yet ready to hear. You can keep diluting your vision until it's safe enough for the timid and comfortable enough for the complacent. You can keep trimming the edges of your truth so it can fit neatly inside the small boxes other people live in. You can retreat into the crowd, convincing yourself their acceptance is worth the cost of your potential. You can settle for their limitations as your boundaries, their blindness as your sight, their stagnation as your rest. Or so, you can embrace the path of the visionary, the road that has no maps, because you are here to draw them. The road where every step forward feels like exile, yet every breath tastes like destiny. You can accept that seeing the future means walking alone toward it, before anyone else can even see its faint horizon. You can take your loneliness, that heavy stone you've been dragging, and sculpt it into a monument of preparation. You can turn your isolation into the forge where your innovation is tempered. You can stop apologizing for your evolution, stop explaining your transformation to those who haven't begun theirs, and start celebrating it as proof that you have crossed a threshold they cannot yet imagine. You can stop seeking permission from the ghosts of the past and start speaking in the language of the future through what you build, not what you justify. The choice is yours, but understand this. Every great leap in human history began with a single mind willing to be misunderstood. Every revolution started with someone willing to walk alone into a truth others feared to face. Every shift in consciousness was sparked by an ambassador from a future that did not yet exist, someone willing to endure the sacred loneliness of being ahead of their time. Are you that someone? The future is not asking for your words, it is demanding your embodiment. It does not need your explanations, it needs your example. It does not require you to convince, it requires you to become. The loneliness of the visionary is real, it is sharp, it will break you open and strip you bare. It is the toll demanded at the gates of higher consciousness, a toll most will never pay. But remember this, it is temporary. Your vision is eternal, and eternity will remember who carried it when no one else would. So, choose accordingly. Write in the comments, I choose the loneliness of truth over the comfort of illusion. Let the world see how many visionaries are awake, how many ambassadors of the future are ready to embrace their sacred isolation. Because you are not alone in being alone. You belong to an invisible fellowship of pioneers, souls scattered across centuries and continents, each carrying a fragment of humanity's destiny in the quiet chambers of their hearts. Your loneliness is a bridge to every visionary who ever walked this earth. Your isolation binds you to every pioneer who ever broke a path when none existed. Your solitude links you to every prophet who ever saw beyond the fog of their own time. You are alone, but you are not the only one, and that truth changes everything.